Helena, great to have you. Thank you for coming to see us in your last days here at the ILO. After 12 years leading the Workers' Bureau in the office, you're stepping into retirement from the ILO, I hope, not from your career. First of all, how are you feeling about this?
I have double feelings, let's put it like that. Thanks for the interview, Martin, to start with. It's been very exciting all the 12 years I've been in the ILO, with ups and downs, with new challenges every day in a house like ours dedicated to what we do. So I feel a bit divided by leaving the team that I have constructed, the colleagues in the office widely, the colleagues in the region. So I'm going to miss you all very much. But I'm also enthusiastic with the fact that it's always good to have new people coming in. And I think having a new director in ACTRAV, bringing new ideas and new perspectives and new experiences is also good. So I'm sad on one hand, leaving the people, but I'm happy because there's going to be a renewal which always brings innovation and new ways of doing things for the purpose of fulfilling the ILO's mandate.
Well, we're going to miss you too, of course. But let's go back to the beginning of your career. You started out as a trade unionist for the UGT in Portugal. Then you went on to work at the European Trade Union Confederation. Um, what pulled you first of all into the trade movement?
Well, I mean, this was in the early 80s in Portugal, right? We had just come out of a revolution in 1974. So this was the moment when there was a lot of agitation and a lot of activities in the country, and where we were trying to find the right democratic model to move forward. And that's what pulled me into the UGT at the time, compared with another trade union movement or another trade union organization that had been there already during the dictatorship, but which was not, in my view, fulfilling the ideals of what a democratic revolution would bring. So, as I had been an activist in my times at school and in high school, I felt that this was almost a normal link between what I had done before during my studies and what I could do in the labor market.
Throughout your career, you've worn different hats. You were a union leader, then you moved into parliament. You were also Minister of Labor in Portugal. Uh, did those roles ever clash throughout your career? Did you feel that they ever clashed? I mean, was it hard to balance the political responsibility with the trade unionist responsibility?
Well, I've started my career in the trade union movement, always very much linked also with the political party, the Socialist Party in Portugal. And then when I came to the government and to parliament, I came as a representative of the Socialist Party as well. The Socialist Party in Portugal is a social democratic one, with a very well developed school from Mário Soares, but with inspiration, for instance, in Olof Palme from Sweden, or Mitterrand in France at the time, Helmut Schmidt in Germany, and Mário Soares was always a big source of inspiration for me, and my paths crossed with him a lot of times. And I would say he was probably one of the first sources of inspiration in my career, and who has taught me that you can do different things in your life as long as you don't lose sight of what are your values and your principles. And that's what I always applied during my different hats, right? Coming with a very big trade union background, both nationally, but even more at European level, with a big practice in negotiating with European employers and with the European Commission, then moving to the government, where I had also to negotiate with the employers and with the unions, having had the capacity to know how they operate and what they do, but coming at a different time and a difficult time in the history of Portugal, because this is when Portugal was intervened by the Troika, which is the European Union, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. I think my experience as a trade unionist before helped me build the bridges with the employers and with the workers' organizations. Not always satisfying everyone, because that's not what is the role of someone in the government, is taking the responsibility to make the country move forward, but always with a big sense of social responsibility, and with the experience that I had brought into the table. I think that helped me A few weeks before we knew we were going to be intervened by the Troika, I finalized an agreement, a tripartite agreement in the National Institute of Social Dialogue. So I think that really shows the capacity to bring the partners to the table and discuss with them and find solutions that have the country at stake, which was the case in that moment.
So if we then fast forward to 2013, when you arrived here at the ILO, I guess all those skills that you developed throughout your career as a trade unionist, as a politician in Portugal, all that experience came in very handy in this role as head of the ACTRAV bureau.
Well, I mean, I came into a completely different world from the one that I had been experiencing before. Of course, I had relations with the ILO when I was in the European Trade Union Confederation, when I was in government for that matter. I mean, I signed the first ever agreement between the Portuguese government and the training center in Turin, and I'm very proud of that. And we celebrated this year the 10th anniversary of that agreement. But the ILO is one thing seen from the outside and a completely different thing looked at from the inside. So again, my experience was very important, even if I had developed my work mostly in Europe, but in my capacity in Europe also had a lot of relations with other parts of the world in the context of the trade agreements between the European Union and the other parts of the world. So I knew also the international trade union movement. My experience in that was very handy. And very helpful. And yes, I mean, you bring your knowledge, you bring your culture, you bring your way of doing things. And when I arrived, I told my colleagues, for 3 months, I'm going to observe. And then in January, I'm going to come up with proposals. And that's what I did. I mean, I took my 3 months to understand how people worked, why people worked as they did, what was the ILO from the inside, and then in January I was ready to make proposals and to build a team of which I'm very proud of.
Now, a lot has happened outside of the ILO and inside of the ILO since 2013. If you look back on those 12 years, what has been one of your proudest moments, or let's talk about achievements, in your role as head of ACTRAV?
Well, the first one is, I've said, building a team of very competent professionals that have gained the respect of the full ILO office, be it in headquarters or in the field. I cannot say that's what I found when I came. So very, very capable, very professional, from a political capacity and a technical capacity in really contributing to the ILO's work. For me, that's a very, very proud achievement. I would say probably the second one is all the work that we did in the preparation of the centenary of the ILO, not just how we prepared and discussed with the unions what the future of work would entail, but using that opportunity to bring a reform agenda inside the trade union movement. We published a study on trade unions in transformation, as we called it, where the scenarios for the trade unions to remain relevant were 4, and where the only one that could be advanced was one where trade unions would really represent each and every worker in the labor market, be it in the formal economy or in the informal, no matter what is the employment relationship of that worker, the sex, the origin, etc. And bringing that awareness raising inside the trade union organizations, that they also had to change and move away from being active only in the formal sectors of the economy, I would say in the easy sectors of the economy, but expanding their capacity in terms of remaining relevant and helping them be able to develop the proposals, to be sitting around the table and promoting social dialogue and collective bargaining, not just with saying yes or no to the proposals that others would make, but being able themselves to prepare those proposals and to be able to argue about those proposals and defend those proposals is probably what I'm most proud of. And I think we have succeeded in that. The third and last thing I'm very proud of was the capacity of the ACTRAV team, almost from one day to the next, when we went into lockdown with COVID-19, to remain connected and to remain in touch with the trade union organizations. And very quickly, we had a program running of webinars, on the issues around what COVID was about, although we did not know much, but looking at how we could bring the trade unions to the table to discuss working conditions, occupational safety and health, how you could protect the frontliners, how you would use issues like teleworking that would not bring the workers into an isolation mode. I'm very proud of the work we did in that time, and I'll never forget that, and the capacity of the team also to reply very quickly and very efficiently.
Yeah, just listening to you now, I mean, I'm going back to the centenary 2019, COVID 2020. I mean, so many things have happened, like we said, inside and outside of the ILO. Now, you were talking about the role of ACTRAV, the Workers' Bureau in the office, which is key, but sometimes it's misunderstood, even by people who work at the ILO. Could you tell us, once again, because we've spoken about this in the past many times, why this role and also the role of ACTRAV, the Employers' Bureau, why it's so key, the roles of the two bureau and the relationship between them and our constituents?
Well, I mean, we're a tripartite organization, the only tripartite organization in the multilateral system as long as it exists. But we are really special in that regard. We are not the trade union or the employer's arm inside the ILO. We are the entry point of two of our constituents that have a very relevant role to play in the world of work, which is what we are doing in promoting social justice, decent work. And so our capacity to have a knowledge about how trade unions evolve at the national level, what are their needs, what are their aspirations, but especially to see where their strong or their weak points are, and to bring that knowledge into the office and to put that knowledge at the service of the office when the office is preparing its programs, its policy interventions, is very, very important. Having said all this, ACTRAV does not own the workers' constituents in the ILO. We all have a shared responsibility in the office to work towards the good of all the constituents. And when I say this, it also means that it's not for ACTRAV only to deal with the workers. This has got to be an endeavor and a joint work of the office in order to promote the capacities of workers and employers' organizations. So there are no specificities that only ACTRAV can do. What we need is to have the capacity to work together in the office, hand in hand, and to make sure that our intervention models do come to a point in terms of results, which is to improve the working and the living conditions of workers, which is to make governments be able to govern better the labor market challenges, and to make sure that the constituents are up to the task in terms of contributing. Not enough to say that they want to be sitting around the table. They have to shape change. They have to be the actors of change. And in that capacity, ACTRAV and ACTEM can help workers and employers organizations develop that capacity. I would say the click we still need to do, and as I am going, is how can we do this from an office-wide perspective and not just from a departmental perspective as we move forward. I think that would be contributing to a much better sustainability of the results of what we do in the different countries and with our constituents.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes back to the role that we have as an office, as the secretariat to the organization, to help the actors of the world of work promote decent work and advance social justice. Absolutely. Now, we were just talking about some of the achievements, some of the things that you felt most proud of throughout your time here at the ILO. But I'm sure not everything has been a success. They're all challenges. What are some of those challenges? Are there any things that you would have done differently now looking back?
Hard to answer that question because the speed into which we evolve is so big. I'll probably be debriefing with myself in a few months. Not yet at this stage. But there is, for instance, one policy area where I would have liked us to probably have got better results. And that's the one linked with the issues around the right to strike. Coming from a culture of European tradition where you negotiate and you don't stop until you find a solution, you just don't park things because they are difficult. The fact that when I arrived at the ILO, the right to strike crisis had started. And when I'm leaving the ILO, the right to strike crisis is moving into another point of its development, but it's not sorted. And for me, it's hard to accept that we could have lost 15 years without making an attempt, I don't know how many, to solve that problem amongst the social partners. So if there is a regret, it's probably, maybe history will tell us, but going back to what we did at the time, which we thought was a lot, the decisions that were taken to park and to agree to disagree, but the harm that this has brought into the work of the ILO, and especially into the functioning of the Committee on Application of Standards, as we have seen throughout the years after that crisis. I regret that.
That's certainly one of the challenges that we have as an organization. Now, looking at the workers' movement, you've been either working as a trade unionist or then always very connected to the workers' movement. How do you see it evolving? How do you see it going forward? What are your hopes for the workers' movement?
I mean, I've said it before. Either trade union organizations are able to be more democratic in their governance models, their own internal governance models, open up to what is a very diverse workforce today, understanding the needs and the aspirations of those that are in the labor market today that need to be protected, but need most and foremost to have a voice. So the unions have to really go out and recruit people, not expect them to come as it used to be the tradition many years ago, where you would be a trade union member from father to son. Forget about that. And make sure that the language that you speak is a language that ordinary people understand, that young people understand, that women in the labor market understand, migrant workers, workers from minorities, whatever. And I think that this is going to be the qualitative step forward, how trade unions will be able to embrace the new communication strategies in order to communicate with the workers or the potential workers, and how they will be able to move away from the only traditional formal regulated sectors of the economy. That's a matter of survival for the trade union movement, and how they are able to bring back into the conversation the importance of collective bargaining as being the only instrument relevant for workers and employers together to address the challenges that exist in the labor market. And sometimes we seem to have forgotten that, or to be much too institutionalized. So you need to get back to basics. And even when you use the institutions, which are very, very important, you need to give a contents to those institutions. They cannot be a talk shop. They've got to be places where you discuss, where you negotiate if a negotiation is needed, where you strike an agreement, and an agreement is one where everyone needs to find himself in the results of that agreement, but when afterwards you also need to do the most to honor the agreement and to implement that agreement. And these are the results of bipartite or tripartite social dialogue. We're far from that, even in the developed countries. So I think that we need to, if we consider, and I think that it's the best system that we have found so far in the labor market, this collective voice, because it's an illusion to think that a worker that is individually in the labor market without having a collective protection and a collective voice is better off. He can be on the specific moment, but he cannot be throughout his career, is in my view the only way to move forward. Unions have this responsibility, but so have employers' organizations, because often they have the same challenges in terms of representativeness. It's not just the workers in the cloud, it's the employers in the cloud. And so it's something that both will have to address together, but also the governments in their capacity to understand the issues and in their capacity to regulate in a way that serves everyone and not just one side. So for me, moving forward in that direction is the only possible avenue of progress, of sustainable development, and of fairness and social justice in our societies.
Absolutely. Adaptability. I mean, the world is changing. The world of work is changing. And now looking beyond the workers' movement, looking at the ILO and the multilateralism and how multilateralism is being challenged right now. How do you see the ILO moving forward in this changing world of work and in this changing world?
Well, as I said, when I came, we had the right to strike crisis, and when I go, we have the multilateralism crisis, right? Probably from a macro perspective more serious than the right to strike one, which is a micro one that needs to be dealt with by our constituents in the ILO. I'm concerned about the way things are evolving, but I have no doubts that the ILO will be able, as we have done in the past on the other challenges prior to us in the ILO, but COVID again is a good example of how relevant ILO became, how we were able to put the ILO on the media every day across the world because we were helping, we were having a role and a relevance, and our role and relevance is not going to go away because the labor market, no matter how the multilateral system is going to evolve, the challenges around workers' rights, the capacity of the enterprises to thrive and to develop, the capacity of the governments to be able to have a fair policy approach and the policy regulation is not going to go away. So the ILO maintains its relevance, its importance as we move forward in a multilateral system that is full of question marks. But I'm sure we will be able to continue observing and evolving in the right manner. Tripartism and our tripartite governance model is helpful in that regard, I hope, as we move forward, that it will be able, that the constituents will be able to assume their responsibilities in making sure that the ILO not just maintains but expands its relevance as we move forward. We always say the ILO has never been more needed than before. I can repeat that. It's a cliche, but it's a reality. And as we see the way the world of work is evolving, as we see the shrinking of the civic spaces inside and outside the labor market, as we see the persistent attacks on workers' rights and often also on the capacity of enterprises to operate and to evolve, this is the place, this is the house where you need to address those issues independently from how the multilateral system is going to evolve and whatever the new world order will look like. There are dangers outside, of course, but this is a challenge, but an opportunity for the ILO to come out stronger out of this situation.
Maria Elena, thank you very much for your time, not only today, but over the past 12 years. Thank you for your services to the office, to this organization. You'll be very much missed by all of us. And best of luck in this next chapter of your life.
Thank you very much, Martin. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.